You're listening to the Fantasy Football Podcast with Charles Barr and John Chapman.
All right, we are live. Welcome to the Fantasy Football Podcast, and today's going to be a little bit different because my sidekick slash leader slash friend guy slash Charles, host, is not here. At host Chuck B has other obligations that he had to do, and hats off to that guy. But here's what I would strongly suggest. We've developed a pretty good following. We're hitting about 400 plays and downloads per episode, which is great. This is episode 18. But if you have done nothing, we don't really care if you follow us on Twitter, besides the conversation. But I do want you to do this. Go to his Twitter and give him a ridiculous amount of crap. At host Chuck B, and call him a pansy, a flake, any of those things. He is missing for legit reasons. But that's who host Chuck B is. So go to his Twitter handle, at host Chuck B, and just say, come on, man. We really missed you this week. Come on, man. Step up your game. If you were half as good as John, all these types of things, go leave those there. Because we need to just bombard this guy's Twitter just because that's what we do. That's what we do. So let's get straight into it. Last week was crazy. But at the same time, I feel like things are starting to be a little bit more predictable, which is wonderful. Because for a while there, especially those first 3 weeks, all of the quote-unquote fantasy experts, not that we would ever put ourselves in that category, totally whiffed, especially on draft predictions and all of these types of things. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through a lot of the injuries, the significance of that, and then we'll get into news and notes and some trade ideas, some trade strategies, and some ways that you can steal a win or two before the season is up. So here we go. Injuries right off the bat. This one is probably the most severe, and that's Joe Thomas, the left tackle for the Cleveland Browns, tore his tricep. Now, what's crazy is he is the ultimate Iron Man when it comes to football. And I know you're saying, man, this is fantasy football. Why are we talking about linemen? Because he impacts that entire offense. He played over 10,000 straight snaps. He will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And there's a possibility he will never play again, which is so sad. But this downgrades every single Cleveland player if they weren't already downgraded. So they moved down even further. Now, after that, we had Carson Palmer. He broke his left arm, which there's rumors out that he said he could be back in as fast as a month. Well, players that are that old usually don't come back that quick. So he's going to be out for a little while. And this downgrades everybody. Most in particular, Adrian Peterson, which he had a terrible game anyway and came back to earth. And you can kind of expect more of the same. Not saying that Adrian Peterson won't have more good games, but I think this is going to be a little bit more of the status quo instead of his 134 rushing yards his first week there. But Larry Fitzgerald, this destroys. He was a borderline number one wide receiver and looking to again lead the NFL in receptions. That is no longer going to be the case. So you're downgrading Larry Fitzgerald to a wide receiver 2, and no other receiver in that offense is even worth owning. They are almost completely droppable. John Brown, Jerron Brown, all those guys, J.J. Nelson, non-existent anymore. Adrian Peterson, he might be a flex play. We'll see what happens. Hopefully he can rebound, or if somehow they go and pick up a signal caller that's out there on the streets that can actually play. Drew Stanton is not a quarterback. He's a backup guy that understands the system, but we saw what happened. It's not going to go well. Also, Smoking Jay Cutler broke his ribs. It actually says cracked his ribs, and they said plural. So he is going to be out for a while. That's a severe injury for a guy that is out of shape. And to be honest with you, they were about to make the move to Matt Moore anyway. He comes in, throws for 2 touchdowns in 2 quarters, and in only 2 quarters of play put up more fantasy points than Jay Cutler has in any game this year. So this is huge because now you're stock up, and everybody is increased now for Miami. Everybody takes a small tick up. Devontae Parker is practicing, but I don't think he's going to play. So Kenny Stills, Jarvis Landry must starts absolutely in all formats right now while things are the way that they are. So that's great. Now, is Matt Moore a fantasy quarterback? No. In Superflex, 2 quarterback leagues, yeah, go pick him up. Dynasty, obviously not. Andrew Luck, oh my gosh. Super sadness here. Ruled out again for Week 8. He's not even throwing again since that shoulder came back. And I'll be really honest with you, I would not be surprised if they just shut him down. There is a great chance that he does not play one snap. They are 2-5. They're not going to be in the playoff hunt. That's just what it is. Why rush him back for long-term injury? So you just got to understand, the Colts are done. And he is 100% droppable in all formats. And I have him in several leagues, and I thought he was the steal of the draft whenever I got him in the 10th round. I was wrong. Host Chuck B, I'll give him props. He called me out on that, and he was 100% right. Definitely do not need to own Andrew Luck in any formats besides Dynasty. He needs to go. Emmanuel Sanders, he's now day-to-day with his ankle. I still don't think he'll play this week. Go give Demaryius Thomas a start. Now, a crazy stat, Demaryius Thomas has not scored a touchdown yet this year. He is going to. He had the amazing play. It was like a 50-yard reception that was called back on a ridiculous pass interference call. So go get, telling you right now, go get Demaryius Thomas. I know that offense has looked terrible, but this is a guy that will be a wide receiver 2 with upside moving forward rest of season. And when Emmanuel Sanders comes back, that's great. It's not going to affect him too much, but obviously take him right now. Corey Davis, this is a huge pickup. A lot of people did not pick him up. He's on a bye week. He has missed since week 2. But if you go back to his first game, whenever he had 8 catches for 64 yards, he is going to be a focal point in this offense when he comes back. And they have been resting him. His hamstring has continued to act up. But this was the target next week. So you are picking him up now, and the upside there is it couldn't be any higher. You are talking possible wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, and a guy that is just sitting on waivers right now. He's only owned in about 65% of leagues, and he didn't show up on a lot of people's waiver wires because he's on a bye week. But guess what? We're getting later in the year. This is not the time to just follow what everybody else does. Everybody's trying to get the one guy that they can play this week, especially this week with so many teams on bye. But that's ridiculous. You have to plan ahead. You have to plan ahead. My favorite fantasy football moment ever is whenever I picked up Odell Beckham 2 weeks before he was supposed to come back his rookie season. And he saved me from losing that year. It was a bad year. That was the same year that Ray Rice and Adrian Peterson were suspended for the whole year, who both were on my teams. And so this is the stuff that you have to do. You have to outthink your opponents and go a week or 2 early. So go check right now if Corey Davis is there. You need to pick this guy up. Okay, Delanie Walker, his injury looked terrible, but turns out it's just a deep bone bruise, and he should be okay. Again, the bye week helps him out tremendously. He probably would have been a game-time decision if they were playing this week, but he should be just fine next week. Now, let's get into some news and notes, and let's start with the wonderful Martavis Bryant. This is just hilarious. I feel like the Steelers locker room and behind the scenes needs to be on television. You got people stealing bikes. You got Twitter feuds. You have all these things. You have Martavis Bryant, who nobody has ever claimed is a very intelligent human being, complaining to the refs, or complaining to the coaches, complaining to the press, complaining to teammates and all these things. And the first practice back for the week, he just didn't show up and said he was sick. He was on Twitter. Well, that didn't go well because he shows up the next day and he gets suspended. He is now on the scout team, the practice scout team, and he is inactive for the upcoming week. Completely droppable. He is requesting a trade, but guess what, buddy? The trade market's not going to be high for you, and this is not the way the Steelers do business. If they're not willing to negotiate with Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown outside of practice, you got to think, Martavis Bryant, sorry, man, that's just not going to be who you are. We've seen this before with prima donna wide receivers, namely Mike Wallace. They are just fine letting you walk out the door, but they are not going to meet your demands. So, Juju Smith-Schuster is a great play this week if he clears concussion protocol. It didn't look severe, but you never know with concussions and head injuries. So go get Juju Smith-Schuster. Martavis Bryant is droppable in almost all formats except deep leagues, which, let's be honest, a lot of people were wrong on. The good thing about Martavis Bryant is he plays very well at home. So if you decide, you know what, screw that, I'm keeping him. Obviously, you're not playing him this week. You play him on the home week. Wait till his next home game, and let's see how it goes because he's the kind of guy that could still blow up for touchdowns. Dewayne Brown, not necessarily injury. He was holding out, the left tackle for the Texans. And he's a top 4 left tackle in the league, and he comes back to an already potent offense. He had the entire bye week to get back into the scheme of things, which for a left tackle, that's been their entire career. You definitely don't have to worry about. But this is a huge stock up for everyone. Deshaun Watson, Lamar Miller is a great buy low candidate right now. Go get Lamar Miller in leagues. Nuke Thompson, all these guys, Ryan Griffin. This helps the entire offense. Not that they needed help. They've been absolutely amazing. Aaron Jones, it was unreal how well he played. He started the game for the Packers, came out, and just dominated. If you're on my Twitter feed, I went and cut up all the film of every carry and touch that he had this week, and it's just awesome watching those back-to-back. The kid's something special out of UTEP. I was really high on that guy during the draft. I say high. I had a 4th round pick on him. I think they got him in the 6th round. Ty Montgomery only had 4 carries for 6 yards. The days for Ty Montgomery are over. I'm not saying drop him, but if you're expecting him to come back and be a feature back, especially without Aaron Rodgers, you are very, very wrong. Okay, I think he'll come in on some passing downs, but this is Aaron Jones' show now. As long as he keeps putting up like this, he is startable in all formats. All Packers wide receivers are worthless. This is sad. So initially, when Brett Hundley came in, I was knocking everybody down 1 tier. So, for example, Jordy was a wide receiver 1. I moved that to a wide receiver 2. Whenever I say wide receiver 1, what I'm saying is top 12 of the position. So I was wrong about that. The leading receiver for their team was Martellus Bennett with 17 yards. 17 yards receiving was the most by anybody. So hopefully they improve. But with every single wide receiver and tight end for the Packers, all you're hoping is for 1 touchdown. So hopefully it's their bye week as well. Hopefully they get things in order, but it is just trash. Hunter Henry, he completely outsnapped Gates 100-75, and he is now the true number 1 moving forward for the Chargers. And I consider him a top 6 tight end for the rest of the season. So he's still available in some leagues. I think he's like 70% owned. So go check that out. I know waiver wires just went through, but go out there and snatch these guys up. You always got to check. And it's so funny. There's so many times where I'm in a league and I'm just like, no way somebody's out there. No way somebody's out there. Somebody dropped Jarvis Landry in a 12-team league that I was in, and I was able to get him. I have no clue. I still don't know why you would drop him right now. But anyway, that's just an example. Marlin Mack for the Colts, he's for real. Now, he outsnapped Gore. This is the second time that somebody outsnapped Gore this year, but it's all based on how close the game is. If the Colts are blowing somebody out, which they won't this year, Gore's going to rest. They're going to rest the old guy. Okay, if it's close, Gore is playing. But Marlon Mack is going to be a force to be reckoned with. And if he can somehow steal away those goal line carries, you're talking RB2 for the rest of the year. So Marlon Mack, absolute must start. He is going to be wonderful and the cool thing about Marlon Mack is even if the Colts fall behind, which they have done, they're going to keep getting work to their rookie. So it's almost more beneficial for Mack if the game gets out of hand. If you have Gore, you're expecting a close game, play Gore. He is definitely a viable option. Okay, waiver wires went through, and on a couple of these guys, most of these people were picked up. Ted Ginn, double digits in 3 out of 4 weeks. Kenny Golladay is an absolute must start as long as Golden Tate is out. His arm is still in a sling. Go get Kenny Golladay. The guy is just a baller, and the sky is the limit. He is a boom-bust play with upside, if that makes any sense. Wendell Smallwood. Not on any. These are all guys that weren't necessarily targeted high on a lot of the other people's waiver ads and who are still out there. Smallwood came out and started the game. He looked like he was going to be the guy, and something happened. The second half, they went Corey Clement, but I'm telling you right now, Smallwood, they are trying their hardest to get Smallwood more involved. And so pick that guy up and just stash him in deep leagues because I think he could pay off for you big time. Okay, quarterbacks, Tyrod Taylor. I have no idea how this guy is still not out there. I told you to get him last week. He goes out and puts up over 20 points. And his schedule, he has the most favorable fantasy schedule for the rest of the year. Plus, he's already had his bye week. So if you have one of those guys, Carson Palmer or something like that just got injured, go get Tyrod Taylor. Josh McCown keeps putting up back-to-back 20-point weeks. I'm not in love with them, but the one thing that the Jets do is they throw the ball in the red zone, and so that helps a lot. A lot of teams don't do that. Now, Cooper Kupp, a deep league guy. Again, I talked about Corey Davis. Go get him. Tight end, O.J. Howard. I know a lot of people picked him up, and that's great, but just know I don't think it's sustainable what he's going to do. As soon as they get into the red zone, they target Cameron Brate. So O.J. Howard's touchdowns are going to have to continue to be these very long kind of bomb plays. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now let's get into a couple of trade targets and why these guys are bargains. You could say anybody's a trade target. Like, I completely understand that. But Drew Brees right now is the number 9 quarterback in fantasy, which is fine. That's solid. But why not go trade for him? We know what Drew Brees can do, and he's played on the road. Most of his road games are out of the way. So I think you have 5 of the next 6 games at home, which is unreal. And we all know he plays well at home. His teammate, Mark Ingram, he's the number 12 running back. But I'm telling you right now, he is top 5 running back rest of year. The amount of touchdowns that this guy is going to get and the amount of carries he's going to get are just ginormous. As soon as Adrian Peterson left the building, this guy not only became a different player, but he's getting more carries. There is no more that whole Sean Payton, hey, Mark Ingram, we don't really like you thing. So they like him, and they're going to ride him and Kamara. There's plenty of room for both of them. Not 3, but 2. And so go get Mark Ingram. Joe Mixon, number 36 running back. Here's what crazy. If you watch the first half of that Cincy game last week, Joe Mixon was phenomenal. He did not get 1 carry in the second half. Now, the one thing that scares me a little bit about Joe Mixon is he went and complained to reporters. I don't know why the coaching staff's not getting me carries, which he's a hardcore whatever. He's not a very smart guy. Punch girl in the face, all that kind of stuff. And so this is huge. So hopefully the locker room and the coaching staff don't turn against him. Marvin Lewis, I don't know how that guy's still coaching. But anyway, Joe Mixon is a buy low guy. Go get Joe Mixon because the owners of Joe Mixon are pissed off because they keep seeing these flashes, but he has not paid off for them yet. Sterling Shepard, which I'll talk about him a little bit more in a fantasy trade that I just got done in the league. He is the number 49 wide receiver coming off an injury, but he's going to be a top 24 wide receiver or a wide receiver 2 rest of season. There's only 2 people that they're going to throw the ball to in New York, and that's going to be Evan Ingram, the tight end, who is a stud rest of year, and Sterling Shepard. They're going to put up a lot of volume. Dez Bryant, number 21 wide receiver. If Zeke gets suspended, those touchdowns are going to go in the air. They're going to throw the fade. And Dez is probably one of the top 3 best fade receivers in the end zone. So go get that guy. Hunter Henry, I already talked about. Now, real quick before I jump off, I want to talk about a couple strategies that I try to do this time of year to steal a game or two. And what I will do is I will look through my roster and see, which this week was the perfect one, if I have a lot of bye weeks. Okay, if I have a lot of bye weeks, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to trade away players for future bye weeks to the teams I am playing. So, for example, I have Pierre Garçon in a lot of leagues just because I knew the volume and consistency would be okay. He's a decent flex play, and I love the 49ers. I'm a little biased there. So, his bye week is week 11. So, in one of my leagues, I go look at, okay, Pierre Garçon, he's got a week 11 bye. Who am I playing week 11? I pull up that roster. I want to trade away my player to their bye week. That way, when I play that team, they can't use them against me. I know it's a small thing, and I'm going to make sure that whenever I do a trade, I'm getting back value plus. So I traded Pierre Garçon to my week 11 opponent for Sterling Shepard. So I have Sterling Shepard ranked ahead of Pierre Garçon, just flat out. And then you put on top of that, well, I'm still in Sterling Shepard, and I'm going to play him against that guy here in 3 weeks. It's little things like that that you can still and sneak away a win. Figure that out, okay? So go through your roster and just make sure, okay, what bye weeks do I have? Oh, my goodness, I have 3 wide receivers on bye week in week 11. Well, fix that situation. Get rid of one of those guys in a trade and try to get something back. That's the whole idea there. Also, pay attention right now. See if the waivers went through because there's so many teams on bye right now. And go and look at everybody's roster. And I guarantee you, on every single league that you're in, you're going to find somebody that doesn't have a kicker, that doesn't have a defense, that doesn't have a tight end, so on and so forth. See if you can take advantage of that. Hey, man, I noticed you got this guy on bye. Hey, and type this in there. Let them know. You can start this guy. He's already had his bye. And so you are selling low and you are selling high and buying low. And take advantage of the guy that's like, oh, man, I have no clue what to do. My roster's not full. Go take advantage of those guys. That's what it's about, because everybody's rosters and the waiver wires are about to start drying up. Everybody understands kind of what's going on. So what you need to do is just make sure you are winning the situation and outsmarting your opponents. So a couple things. Hopefully those work out. Let me know. Hit me up on Twitter, JL_Chapman, JL_CHAPMAN. If you get some of these bye week trades in, I'd love to hear about it. And again, if you haven't already, go to @HostChuckB and give him a hard time, because, man, he needs it. We just need to give him a hard time. But anyway, thanks a lot, fantasy football fans. We appreciate you guys, and we will talk to you next week. And Chuck will be back next week. You won't just have to listen to me talk for 23 minutes. So take care, guys.